us working in an austere time, we have been very conscientious of that.
So you think you can continue these initiatives even if you experience this cut?
Yes, sir, and I'll give you a very good example. DOSH, that position has been vacant for some time, and only because we were having a difficult time finding a safety manager or safety inspector. We have a group we call the Workers' Comp, all the compliance people, the administrators, from your wage and hour to your OSHA to your DOSH to work, and Workers' Comp. And that particular group, the administrators, we actually sat down and said, okay, we don't have that very many people, but these are the things we need to do. So when alien labor, when they go out and do their on-site review, when they visit an establishment, they also look at the bulletin board to make sure that the employers are also posting on the bulletin board all the other requirements that Workers' Comp, if they were to go in and do those things. So we are working together within our own network and our own group. And again, it's a matter of recognizing that we don't have that very many people and that there are so many commonality and similarity that they do. So by all of them understanding what they all need to do, they help each other.
I see, okay. You know, one thing that occurs to me, and I'm sure you certainly must be very aware of it, is with the impending military buildup on Guam, you're going to see a massive influx or an attempt at a massive influx by folks from other countries that will want to come here and get jobs. And of course, the processing of the H-2 applications goes through your office and the governor's office, and as well as the U.S. federal offices. But enforcement of terms and conditions of those approvals when they occur, your department endorses approval of an H-2 worker coming in because local workers are not available, etc. Do you have the capability of enforcing the terms of those agreements that the companies will present to you requesting these foreign workers to come here? Can you enforce the terms of those agreements?
Well, it's not whether we can, it's something that we should. Mm-hmm. As early as February of last year, we have, again, in preparing, in just working, for example, we established a dialogue with the Philippine Overseas Employment Agency. If anything, we want them to make sure that whoever they send over here are people who are truly trained and ready to ready to work. So what we have done since last year is really we started working with the Consular Corps. Mm-hmm. And again, letting the Consular Corps understand that since if we're going to be building this island with the foreign workers, then they need to understand their role in assisting the Department of Labor to make sure that they communicate. So the visits we made with the Consular Corps, the Philippine Consulate, the Korean Consulate, and the Japanese Consulate. So we have at our level, David, myself, and Erica, we have gone and visited different entities that we know we need their help in order for us to succeed. And as far as are we able to go out and do this auditing and compliance inspection, I believe if we continue to, again, work with the employers, a good example, annually we have a training and an one-day conference with all the H-2B employers. On the 19th of April, we're having a one-day conference for all these employers to come in, again, to reiterate and to reinforce what it is that they need to do. So we have speakers coming in from the Attorney General's office to the Department of Revenue and Taxation, different entities, again, reiterating to these employers that you must pay your taxes, you must pay your GRT, you must pay the right wages. U.S. wage an hour is also going to be a speaker at that conference. Right. So those are the kinds of things that we have brought and continue to offer the employers so that they know and understand that they need to comply with U.S., local, and federal law.
Right.
Yeah.
I think my major concern is the enforcement of all of these things, because the last time we sort of had an economic increase in economic activity on Guam between 87 and 93, there were literally thousands of H-2 workers here. And you recall there were some demonstrations that involved workers from People's China. They marched down to the Department of Labor and protested because they weren't being paid properly. And then it was discovered that the contracts that they signed that were submitted to the Department of Labor and U.S. Immigration Service were different from the ones they signed in China and all these other kinds of things. Mm-hmm. And what I foresee, Mrs. Connolly, because someone unofficially told me this from the U.S. Immigration Service last year, is that there are already about 6,000 illegal aliens on Guam. And when I asked this person, well, why aren't you rounding them up? He says, well, it's hard for us. We don't have enough people to monitor them once they get here. If the U.S. Immigration Service doesn't have enough people to monitor illegal aliens on Guam, how much more will you have the capacity to ensure that the terms and conditions of any agreements which allow H-2 workers to work here are being properly enforced, all the way from wages to living conditions, health conditions, and everything else that go along with that?
Yeah. The one thing is, come June, I would be Director of Labor for 3 years. Within the 3 years, I believe there were only, I would say, 5. A company had submitted a letter to us, and maybe a total of no more than 5 people who have, let's say, run away. If anything, again, we continue to emphasize is that as hosts, these employers, as hosts, they are to take care of their foreign workers. And we are also making sure that one of the things we're looking at is when they come here, they also report to the Council of Corps and signed up. But I believe, Erica, if you want to add other
Well, that's very important. That's a major concern that I have. If we have to bring in workers from outside, fine, but things have to be properly monitored, enforced, and controlled, so we don't end up with similar experiences that they're having in the Northern Marianas. The second thing, of course, is we spoke about it briefly before, and I will be communicating with you again, is on the costs for processing alien workers into our community and how we can deal with that to generate more monies for training our local people for those same jobs.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, but maybe we can talk about that at a different time.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We will come and visit you.
Very good.
Yes, ma'am.
Senator Wampen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can I just get from you exactly what dollar amount we're talking about in terms of reduction? Because there's no reduction in the Manpower Development Fund, that's remained same, and then the federal matching grants and aids also the same, but for the general fund, what specific dollar amount?
The reduction that we're looking at, to me, the 2.5 is out of the general fund, and that reduction is by doing the cost allocation of 3 locally funded positions and having some of their costs absorbed and paid by the federal funding.
And what's the dollar amount?
The dollar amount for this remaining PPE, 13 PPE is $50,000, but overall, on an annual basis, we're looking at $101,000 costs that will be borne by AHRD.
$101,000?
Yes, ma'am.
And then something is wrong here then. Let me see. Oh, you did? I'm sorry. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I was out of the room then when that had happened because I thought.
Yeah.
Okay, then is it because the funding is from AHRD? Is that what it is that you're sharing?
Because of the executive order to combine the two, and we are moving towards setting up our organizational structure and the functions very similar to the U.S. Department of Labor, Employment, and Training, is that there are the fiscal and support branch employees, or the positions there are performing functions that are also required at HRD. So rather than them hiring their own people or whatever, we're actually using the Department of Labor employees to perform those functions.
One of the statements that was made by yourself last year during the budget hearing was some of the delivery of services towards a more efficient organization, and one of them that you listed was cross training.
Yes, ma'am.
And I've had this discussion with Mr. De La Rosa last week and even today as well, that there are again individuals within the department who are maybe at the entry level and can be used in other departments and agencies that it would be considered critical for them to continue their operations, but because of the cut would have to forego sometimes even having to hire those individuals. So those in the department, other departments and agencies where there may be a duplication of or more positions than what's really needed, whether your department can assist in the cross-training of these individuals. Is that possible, or is this something that's totally out of the purview of your department?
Well, I'll go ahead and answer. One thing that one of the national strategic direction that we have to show in our state plan, and by the way, we are modifying our state plan, and that's the plan that we need to submit to the U.S. Department of Labor. One of the strategic direction is what they call talent development, and talent development is is a lot of emphasis in looking at the people who are currently working and provide the training that these people need to be more efficient, or even cross-training so that they'll have the opportunity for promotion. So that is something that is being written in our modified state plan that we're going to be submitting to the U.S. Department of Labor by the end of this month. So in answer to your question, the answer is yes. That is something that we will be looking into as far as the incumbent workers program, and working very closely with the HR and the training administrators of the government, and including the private sector, to provide that training.
Okay, very good. So, Mr. De La Rosa, there's your resource. Thank you very much.
Okay, do we have any other members that want to ask a question? Okay, well, Mrs. Conley, Maria, Mrs. Mossy, and to your staff too, thank you very much for being here. And your excuse. Okay, we'll take about maybe a minute to bring in the Department of Agriculture, Guam Plan Inspection and Permit Fund. The Department of Agriculture here, and to my left we do have Paul Bassler, the Director of Land Management, the Director of Agriculture. You can take over, Paul, and introduce the people that are here.
Yes, good afternoon. I am Paul Bassler, Director, Department of Agriculture. To my left is our ASO, Tony Santos, and to the right of the Senator is Joe Torres, the Deputy Director.
Okay, the issue at hand right now is subsection I of the bill itself, and we have, at least according to the bill, $44,507 for the Guam Plan Inspection and Permit, and Federal Matching Grant and Aid $560,565, and General Fund $2,136,038. Okay, on the on sub item I, Senator Espadon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hello, Paul.
Hello.
Paul, just real briefly, I'm just going to ask a couple of questions. Again, Department of Agriculture is one of the agencies under my purview. We have had some discussions about the operations at Department of Agriculture, right? Just for full disclosure.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, I see that, and correct me if I'm wrong, the cut that it's showing, or the decrease in funding that it's showing, is about $426,000, $427,000. Is that correct, or is it less than that?
The cut that what is showing?
I'm sorry, that the bill that the governor has sent down, in terms of, bottom line is that in what we received from BBMR, on the appropriation level for the year 2007, we have funding from the general fund at $2.5 million. Is that correct?
No.
No?
The total is, with the three funds that he just mentioned, is 2.8.
Well, excluding those two funds, the federal matching
Right,
grants as well as
the
Guam.
general fund, the conservation officer, which they did not mention, the plant inspection station fund, and which is the 44,000, and matching forestry.
Okay. Well, then maybe you can just go ahead and just state for me how much of a decrease in the budget are you looking at according to this new from the bill sent down by the governor? Do you know how much of a cut?
Don't know. I don't know that.
You don't know? I mean, only in that, like I said, from the total appropriations for the general fund, I have here from BBMR, effective March 13th, it was at $2,562,520. And the adjustment on the bill that was sent down, it's now down to $2,136,000. Can somebody correct me or
Well,
put
again,
this in perspective for me?
but they show the 2,136,000, and then they also show the 560 for the federal matching on the forestry side, and the 44 on the PIS side.
Okay. So, well, I guess a simple question is:
So directly from the general fund is the 2.1, and then there is the matching obligation. The appropriation on PIS is coming from a revolving fund that earns income.
Right. I guess again, what I'm just coming down to is, what is the figure that you get that's being proposed that will be reduced from your budget?
Well, we've been given a lot of choices to look at, from 2.5% up to 8%. Basically told to shave it back as far as we can.
Okay, so there's no set amount that you've been reduced by?
None that I've been told about.
Well, then, knowing a little bit about the operations at Department of Agriculture, at least from my side, and I'm going to ask your opinion, can you, at this point in time, afford a cut in your budget here?
Yes, we can afford a cut. The common figure being used is 2.5%. We can afford that. We have employees leaving. We have some that took advantage of the half-day program. We do have some soldiers that have chosen to stay in, and even though they ran out of leave time. So there are some salary issues that have allow us some flexibility. Not too much, but some.
Okay, so you're basically stating that if it was a 2.5% reduction in your budget, you could live with it at this point in time?
That would be affordable for us, yeah. It would hold back a few things we would like to be doing, but it doesn't crimp our current level of efficiency.
At least until September.
At least until September, we would continue to seek more resources as years come,
Thank you. Mr. Chairman.
Senator Wampet.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I find this very disturbing that somehow you, as a director of your department, don't know specifically how much you're going to be reduced. And if you don't know, it makes it very difficult for us to actually look also at your budget. Now, the previous speaker, your chairman, basically has indicated that at least from a document that we have of a total appropriation for your department was 2.5. That does not include your plant inspection and permit fund. That remains as is. It would not be touched. Your federal matching of $560,000 will not be touched either. It is only in the general fund that the bill that came from the governor's office is actually showing then, compared to what was appropriated in 2007, and I also have, when we looked at the Public Law 28-150, the amount, and based also on what BBMR has indicated to us, it was 2.5. So therefore, your cut, your share of the cut, then basically is $426,482. And like the previous speaker had requested, basically, is to find out how and what are you going to do to stay and to be able to operate with $426,000 less. And by the way, I say while you're looking at that, also, Mr. Chairman, I know you've requested
Where's the 2.5?
this last week about all vacant positions, and I
Yeah,
like to say.
do you have the listing of all your vacant position? And
We do.
Okay, and also the amount that has been released, the allotment released to you, and the cash you receive.
Yes.
Okay, can you pass that out?
They're looking for what?
Yeah.
They want to get a copy of the allotment that's been passed around and our vacant positions.
Okay, are they making copies of it, or have you passed it out?
Yeah, are we talking about?
Okay, 1 minute recess. The item, sub-item I. Okay, Senator Judy Wampa, you still have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I've just been enlightened, and John, I had asked you that question earlier this morning when I was looking at the governor's
Can the
bill.
chair also have a copy of the distributed copy?
Well, I haven't gotten it either. But I didn't even get a copy. How come I didn't get
No,
a
no,
copy?
no.
Tom?
That's okay, you can have it, no.
What happened to the guy?
What?
Tom, I didn't get one of those copies. So they were supposed to give us a copy
Yeah,
of
what
the
happened?
vacancies
What happened?
and
They just
Distributing?
went off and did that. Here he
allotments.
comes. Here he comes.
Yeah, you didn't get one either? Wow. Okay, oh, so this is the new one now from you, John? Can you? Oh, can somebody please give the chairman a copy? Tom?
Well, yeah, Senator Speech gave me. But can I have the sergeant at arms to pass the chair first before anybody else?
Where's my blue copy?
Yeah, well, the same thing I got from Respicio. Okay, Senator Judy Wampa, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Like I was saying earlier, I wish we had gotten this earlier and it would have cost us less grief, because when we were comparing the numbers from originally what was given to us from March 13 had the 100% appropriations from the general fund. And earlier, John, I had asked you that question. Just looking at the governor's bill, there's been a delineation of certain funds and what the dollar amounts are, and then there's also one specifically for the general fund. So we asked, how are we going to be able to read this? And so it's no wonder why the director from Department of Agriculture is kind of shocked at the dollar amount of $426,000. Don't worry, we are too. You know, now that we've learned that we take the 426 and subtract the matching, local matching of 276, surely brings it down to much lower now. You're probably going to say you're going to close shop if you were going to take away $400,000. So I like to, since we now finally have cleared that, and I thank you for the other form, spreadsheet, I'm curious to find out from you now, and it's kind of disturbing as well, is that you were told to cut, and I'm quoting you, told to cut from 2.5 to 8%. No one has ever told us that they've gone beyond 2.5. Why are you being asked to even go beyond 2.5 to shave off as much as you can?
Well, I think the whole idea was to find out what we are capable of doing. And at the time we were asked to look into that, there was, that 2.5% was not a set figure. It was still being debated and researched. So
John?
Senator, as we were going through the exercise of assessing the extent of reductions required, we had asked the agencies to do that, to do from a range of 2.5, which reflected the complete request of the governor's revised budget, up to 8%, which would have reflected a much lower revenue projection if the revenues were adopted at that lower level. The 8% across the board to the agencies would have been what was necessary, and we wanted to assess the impact of that to their operations. It wasn't for them to implement a reduction, but to study what that reduction would do to their operations.
I hope we're not going to be surprised later on to find out that every department and agency has another plan of an 8% reduction. Is it standard throughout then the executive branch that it's going to be 2.5?
Yes, everybody has had to go through the exercise of assessing how to address the 2.5 reflected in this. What we asked them to do is also prepare, looking forward, if the reductions required were larger. There's not clearly that would have impact in operations for every agency that would affect the services they deliver, and in many instances, in the large majority of the agencies, would affect their personnel levels.
Mr. Bassler, when you received, or rather told to cut then by now $200,000, did you prepare then basically look through and decide what cuts and where the cuts will be made in your department?
Yes.
And can you share what those are?
Well, as I said, there were certain cuts that were timely in the sense that we had an employee give notice. We had another employee willing to take the 50% furlough. We have a few employees that have been doing military service. They no longer have any leave to take, but they're continuing their military service. There's some positions that we, did not hire, we delayed hiring in order to create that range of potential loss of revenue. And as John pointed out, they do affect us in the sense that there are things that we would like to achieve if we could have more in terms of resources, but that would depend on where the budget cut ended.
Now, you're the first actually for me to hear that you've actually have some individuals that are in furlough and that they have taken the one option of the 50%. How
Yep.
many do you have?
One.
Just one person.
Yes.
And John, how many do we have in the government? And I didn't even know that this went into effect. I thought it was just a notice that could happen. I didn't realize that it has gone into effect already.
There is no individual furlough notices out, Senator. What is reflected in Department of Agriculture, and I don't want to speak for the department, but is a voluntary thing, which was part of the general notice, and nobody was required to take any furlough of any sort in this government. And so if their employees at the department opted for that, that was not at the mandate of any individual furlough notices. It was simply a voluntary issue. And I mean,
Are you aware, though, of any voluntary furlough in any other departments and agencies?
you know,
I mean, I understand, okay, that you're saying it's voluntary. So are there any that you are aware of?
You know, I have to get that information for you.
Can
I don't
you
have it.
please?
Yes,
So that
ma'am.
then for later on this week, maybe you can survey all of the departments and agencies so we can have an idea also. I mean, things this kind of changes as, we go along. It's evolving. The figures are changing. The spreadsheets are changing. And the information we're hearing are definitely new to us.
Excuse me, Senator, if I can just add a little bit to that. The gentleman who took the furlough, this was a personal decision for his own reasons. He actually wanted to return to school. So it was timely in the sense that we are dealing with budget issues, but it really had nothing to do with any notices of furlough or anything like that.
No, I mean, I understand that.
Yeah.
That's true, because I've spoken to some people in the government, and that's exactly what some of them are saying. That's why I'm asking if there are any others, because some liked the option of having to go back to school and volunteering to be, on duty only 50% of the time. So, for those individuals is what I'm saying. So, but it'd be good to know as well. Now, the sheet that you had handed out the staffing pattern. These are all of the positions basically that you have that's vacant. Altogether, you have 15 positions.
Yes.
And is the intent then to not hire any one of these for the remainder of this fiscal year?
Actually, we're going to hire the botanist, but depending on our budget, we may postpone his first day of work, and have already discussed that we've already done the committee hearings for this position, and I've already discussed the possibility of delaying his startup until the beginning of the new fiscal year. Again, depending on how the budget line falls. The second page are federally funded, and we will be doing our best to fill those positions. They're 100% federally funded positions. So those we hope to fill. Most of those are professional jobs requiring fairly high qualifications, a little bit difficult to fill.
You won't be able to, because you have some biologists, I understand, under the federal program, and the biologist one or the botanist would not be able to be picked up under the federal funds?
No. No, it's a biologist, federal funds are all very specific to projects. The botanist is for our plant inspection station. It's very important to the nursery association and horticulture industry. They've been having a difficult time having to send off samples off island. It costs them money to leave their boxes of their produce or their live plants while we wait for a professional reaction to things that we find on incoming plants. So having that botanist on board will allow us to clear the plants here and get them to the vendor quicker. So that's very important to us that we fill that. We've been trying for 3 years to get that one filled.
So the collections that you have for the plant inspection and permit fund is not sufficient to handle.
It is, but unfortunately, and I say unfortunately, we have to be appropriated the funds from our revolving fund. We actually earn twice the amount that we've been appropriated, and that number is going up because of the beginning of the plant inspection station in 2004, which we became a national plant inspection station, opened up opportunities now to buy product from other countries in the region, and it has been steadily increasing the business, and we've been seeing that fund grow, but it is an annual appropriation with the budget for that plant inspection station.
So who are you sharing then the funds with? Because it is double this amount, 44,000. If it's double, that's 80-some thousand. So who are you sharing
With the general fund.
With the general fund? It doesn't go all.
All the money
of it
goes
does
to
not
the
go
general
back.
fund. We get appropriated back what
You're right,
the legislature.
but these funds are specifically to address, to address, you're right, the issues of plant inspection. So you would think that it would all be appropriated back to
We would
your
think that too,
department.
but we thought that thought too, but it isn't. And we would hope you would look at that in your 08 deliberation, that we're also moving that plant inspection station into a nice big facility that needs work, and So yeah, we could use the funds, but
Are there specific fees that you're looking at to increase for this
actually we
section or
just
not?
completed that process, both at the plant inspection station and at our nursery facility. So we did that over a year ago.
And so, but then those fees are in place. The new fees are in
Yes.
place. So, okay, so at least for that, it has been already addressed. And have you, or did you receive any new positions from the governor's office?
No.
None. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, do we have any other speaker on? Okay, Senator Guthers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In looking at your proposed cut, which is higher than other agencies, correct?
2.5%.
Yeah. Well, in terms of impact, I think,
Well, the less you get,
of course,
I suppose the more
yeah.
that, yeah.
My concern is that I grew up on the island, as I hope many of my colleagues did, and I'm sure they have. And Guam was always very active in agriculture. And growing up, I was always amazed at the different things that our farmers would grow, that we would consume, and the quality of the product. And I think the quality of the products that our farmers produce on Guam has improved over the years. Now, with the University of Guam changing, I think, some of its focus on agriculture, you know, we no longer have the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences. Now it's the College of, what do they call it? Do you know? College of Life Sciences and something else, right?
Natural resources.
Oh, College of Life Sciences and Natural Science.
Natural sciences.
And I really did take exception to that change, because to me it was a downgrading of the agricultural mission of the university, the land grant mission of the university. And one day I had the chance to talk to the dean of the new college and said to him, why didn't you folks try to stop that name change? And I said, in the eyes of the farmers, because I know a lot of farmers, talked to a lot of farmers, you know, to them it was a sort of a downgrading of what they do, in the sense that here we had the University of Guam was very much involved in the farming community, did some great things to help farmers, help your department, and all of a sudden the name changes and the focus changes, either unintentionally or otherwise. It changed. The farmers would go up to the university, spend a lot of time at the College of Agriculture. I don't see that now. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't see that same level of emphasis. How has that affected your department, the change at the university?
Well, I think the change has been reflective of what's happened with the community in terms of agriculture as a profession. It's been going down for decades, last couple of decades. It's been going down, and our department has reflected that in its priority funding as well. It's, you know, both at the same time. I would certainly like to see that reversed. I think it's a very dangerous place to go, where we are now so dependent on imports that if something were to happen with the boats and the planes, we could go hungry on an island where we should be growing year-round. But I don't know that you can blame, you know, certainly not the university, because they're still very much engaged. We do what we can with the resources we can to encourage it. But, you know, it's just been other options for our citizens, choosing technology, choosing tourism, you know, other means. We do have a lot of migrants. We have people who have moved here that would love to farm, but they have trouble getting land. We do have a sizable population of people from the Philippines and China and others that do farm on Guam. But again, they have a little bit more challenges than others as far as the land is concerned. I would like to see it get back to the schools. You know, it's not only being being sort of defocused at UOG, but same with the community college. And I know when I came to Guam, I was 19, and they used to have it in elementary schools and middle schools, high schools. It was both agriculture and horticulture were, considered worthwhile careers. And in time, that is slowly degraded away, and to the point where most people think string beans come from Payless.
Well, I appreciate your candidness, and just want to say that I'm hopeful that this legislature can help do something about that and give agriculture and fisheries the recognition that it should have as an important component of Guam's economy and culture and traditions. And we need the university to be part of this. We need the 4-H program to be engaged in the schools as they were before. We need the Future Farmers of America programs back in the school. We need all those programs with our young people to make this possible. So, gentlemen and ladies of the legislature, I hope you'll join me in the near future so we can push this Green Revolution initiative again and work with your department and hopefully engage the university in this agricultural development mode. Thank you very much.
No, thank you, Senator. And just to add that there's tremendous economic opportunity in that field as well. We import well over $100 million in commodities every year. We could probably take care of 40% of that here, if not more. And then you mentioned fisheries. Just creating our own food source, which we have seemed to sort of set backstage, has created problems and has had us miss out on some really good opportunities.
Okay. Thank you, Senator Guthrie. Anybody else? Okay, Senator Pangilinan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. The cut that is being proposed, will it impact ongoing program other than the botanist?
No, I think we'll be able to get the botanist. So,
yeah, but you're not going to until October 1st.
Again, if it's 2.5%, if that is what's decided by this body and others, then we may be able to bring him on a little sooner than October.
Okay.
Yeah. So, does it impact? It impacts our desire to continue to improve and get better at the missions that we have: animal control, plant inspection, conservation law, the things that we do, agricultural development. These are the missions that are attached to the general fund. I mean, as we were speaking, I would like to see greater investment in those things as we go, but that all depends on the priorities of income at the time. So if we're at a lean time, we may not get to grow as we would like to at this point. No, it doesn't make us go backwards. We don't have to cut people, and we are already at probably as tight as we could be on operational funds. We take very minimal. But, just to answer your question, no, I don't think it negatively impacts us, but it does slow down what we had progressively hoped to achieve.
Now, would the development of a farmer's market or a slaughterhouse be some of the initiatives that the department may wish to pursue that would kind of...
Well, those would be excellent goals. There is a proposal, though, on a private sector level for a slaughterhouse.
Okay.
The farmers market has been a challenge and certainly a goal, and it is much needed.
Right.
We've been looking for federal funds. I have, the 4 years I've been here, been trying to find federal funds that might help support it, working also with the farmers and even fishermen to try to create a similar operation that the Fishermen's Co-op has. So far, it's been difficult, and the resources, of course, have been challenging as well. Knowing the tightness of the budget, and it really has been that way for quite a few years for us, we've been focusing more on trying to find a federal funding source to...
Do you have a business plan, I guess, or a development plan for a farmer's market, knowing what the cost of development would be? Is that something that's been done or prepared as you pursue the federal grants, or...?
Probably not to the detail that I would like to have, though I am pressing that from our agricultural development folks. Once again, there is a range that we could work with, something very simple, something a little bit more complex. Getting something would be
Right.
would be the ideal thing, getting our foot off the ground. It requires a great deal of cooperation from the farming community. That in itself has been a little challenging, but we continue to work on doing that. But yeah, to answer your question, I would like to have an amount of money and a plan so that if there was money available, I could put that plan forward and say, we'd like to have that much money to do it.
Right.
We've submitted some federal, for grants, and they were fairly high because the grant had great possibilities, so we put a fairly extensive program together, including the labor and chillers and freezers. I mean, something that would be very ideal. I think if it was coming from general fund money, then we would certainly have to tone down that to at least try to get started and eventually turn it over to the private sector. It really isn't a place for government. But to facilitate it, perhaps get it started, and then maybe an association would be able to take it over.
Yeah, because I don't think, I think that when we say we want to attract outside investors, perhaps what we need to do is grow inside investment and supplant what comes in, with what is locally produced. I mean, we're not going to stop all importation, but if we substitute importation, with 10, 15, 20%, that's money that stays on island and is churned a little better. Plus, it provides employment. I don't think we need to take a look at this magical new developments that provide 3,000 jobs. I think, we have 100 new investments providing 30 jobs each, then we're right there. And I think that's what we kind of need to focus on is the scale of the development. And if we can't grow new industry, it's what's industry is being all imported, and we just supplant a portion of that, and we develop that resource here on Guam so that we're able to do more with our own internal resources. So,
well, I spoke to our chairman earlier and pointed out, as an example, if we had an extra $100,000, we could do the same equipment subsidy that the department once had.
Right.
You could go out there probably in a year's time, plow up 500 acres and create 1,000 jobs.
Right.
But I don't have that money. So.
Okay. All right. We'll look for the money.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Calvo.
Yeah, thank you very much. Again, there was a time when I was that interregnum, is that how you say it? That period between I've been in public office and in the 26th Guam Legislature and of course 28th and 29th. And Paul, I think we had a meeting.
We did.
And I think one of the things, it doesn't take money. There's some infrastructural issues in the local farming community. And if you can recall when a local retailer tried to bring everybody together, all the farmers, told them exactly how much we consume of this product and that product and that product. So obviously when and this is just one retailer, there was an issue where if you give the farmers the exact information of what you need in sigaditas or you name it, green onions, and you tell what those volumes are, and they're substantial, let me go back a little bit. It's very evident and you talk to any local retailer or wholesaler of produce and vegetables, the quality of the products coming from the local farmers is very good. Absolutely. Very good. And the only problem has been it's been feast or famine, and one day you have 10 times supply, and the other day you have zero supply. And there's a lot of folks in the retail and wholesale business that have given the numbers to the farmers and said, this is all we need if you can do it on a consistent basis over the year. There's always been an issue of the farmers getting together as a co-op and as a group to work collaboratively towards the betterment of their industry. And with that, I know the private sector has tried to do it, and maybe with the government Department of Agriculture, especially you oversee a lot of programs, if there can be a more of an effort and a stronger effort. It doesn't take a lot of money, but to try to influence and maybe kind of nudge all our farmers to work together, because I know it firsthand. There are many businesses would love to buy local produce. So again, Paul, maybe that's something, not my oversight, but maybe we could work collaboratively with the oversight chair and see what we can do.
Well, Senator, I know you probably do remember the last time they tried a co-op. It ended up in a bit of a disaster. It's kind of one of those buzzwords that they don't like, now, which we tried to change that and call it an association in order to try to change that attitude that you discussed. And yeah, between retail vendors and the hotel industry, there is certainly a demand, but it does require consistency, and it does require them to work together. No one farmer can take care of it. What they tend to do is all grow the same thing at the same time. They hurt themselves by driving the prices down because of that. The farmers market that Senator Pangilinan spoke of is a good tool, because you can get your contracts with the retailers and the hotels, and then with what's left over, there's a market to be able to sell directly to the public. And otherwise, there's an imbalance to that, where they may not have bought everything that you made, and you don't have an option. They don't, which do you take? The best produce, do you take that to the store, or do you take the best produce and give that to the tourist, or do you take it to a farmer's market? So the grade of the product becomes a part of that formula as well. I do recall those meetings. We've had many others. Already with my new chairman, we've begun that too. I think we see the problem. It's just coming up with that solution and getting people to want to work together on it has been the greater challenge there.
Okay. Thank you. Senator Spaldon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Paul, I'm very glad, first of all, that everybody seems to be very much in support of moving the agricultural industry forward. And I appreciate that, because I believe that as we get closer to this build-out, the military build-out, we're definitely going to have to think more along those lines. But it raises now the question, right? As a former farmer myself, yes, there's all kinds of hurdles we always have to jump through just to get our produce out to market. But even before we get to that point, one issue that we had talked about previously, when I first stepped in the office and you first called me up, was this whole issue about inspection of produce and plants coming in. And again, that has been in my mind ever since that conversation, because you're right, it has to be addressed now. Now, for those who are not familiar with this discussion basically is, I don't know when, but the plant inspection or the inspection of produce coming in, plants, correct me if I'm wrong along the way, Paul,
Yep.
was basically turned over to the responsibilities of quarantine, I believe.
Customs.
I'm sorry, customs and quarantine.
Yeah, that
Yes.
was in the 04 budget bill.
Yeah, and yes, I'm sure that they have gotten some training to identify some potential invasive species that come along, whether it be a disease, whether it be a plant, or a weed of some sort. And we see a lot of weeds now that we've never seen before, taking over and just covering a lot of our flora on island. Now that we're talking about a cut, and I mean, at that point in time when we were having a discussion, you were definitely trying to emphasize the need for agricultural inspectors on site, so that when the shipments do come in, those inspectors who are specifically trained to identify invasive species would then be able to mitigate the problem right there and then. I think we both agree that customs and quarantine, yes, they've probably been trained to a certain degree, but that's probably not their primary focus in identifying plant diseases or plant pests that come in. And, theirs is more with probably homeland security type issues and things like that. So the question now begs, since we all agree that of the importance of agriculture on this island, how did this cut, even though it's $56,000, does that impact your ability to go out and hire anybody to actually inspect, be an agricultural inspector for shipments coming in?
Well, the role still lies with customs, so it doesn't impact me at all in that respect. And you know, it does to a modest degree, because as I pointed out, the botanist is a position at the plant inspection station. Currently, our role under MOU is to offer the science. When a custom guy does identify something, and you're right, they've received minimal training, and they also are worried about homeland security and drugs and guns and everything else. So they're mainly trained, I think, just to try to notice something is wrong. And when that happens, they turn that over to our people, Department of Ag people, entomologists, a botanist, you know, people that are trained to identify those bugs and the disease that are on those plants. So in that sense, right now, without the botanists, we have turned to the university. They've helped us, but those guys are professors. They have jobs, so they're not always able to move as quickly as certainly the nurseryman's industry would like to see. And you know, we're very grateful for the help they've given, but they're not able to give full-time attention to the problem. And then on the federal side, we have to send things off island to have them tested, and that too has created a delay. So is this impacting us? Well, perhaps to a degree where we may miss a month or two or more, depending on where you fall on this budget, of getting that botanist on board. The problem of having customs do that, I've been on record all along, is not favoring the fact that they move that to customs, you know, right at a time when you knew that customs would also be receiving a great deal of homeland security training. And you know, I felt that was putting too much for an officer to have to think about when he walks into that container or he's looking at things. He's got to, you know, not only look for the drugs and the rest, but he's got to look for spider webs and any other strange thing that might be there. I believe then, as I do now, that we should have always maintained a very strong science at the front line, and that's importation. That's the front line. We have received a lot of invasives here over these past few years. We got frogs that you guys are probably all hearing now barking in your rivers we didn't have before. Okay. It's a hard job to do. It's a difficult job to stop those things at the border, and you need a good trained science team.
Sooner better than later, we'd probably have to revisit that issue in terms of if we really want to grow the agricultural industries and help our farmers and nurserymen, then we probably would have to revisit that issue soon.
Certainly would help not to have your crop attacked by something you didn't even know existed. You know.
That's right. You know, only other point I want to make is I noticed the other vacancy you have is a biologist 1, and then in parentheses it has avian influenza. So yes. We're talking about the bird flu,
yes.
Which is, gosh, I mean, a very critical, very serious
it's a threat
to this island. Again, will this cut affect your ability to not fill that position?
No, if it stays at 2.5%, we would be able to. Now, our difficulty with that, of course, is just finding the professional ready to do it. We did actually have a recent committee meeting and hired a young lady, and then she chose not to take the job. It's a rather unique job for a biologist to work on one issue, avian influenza, and there's domestic issues, domestic chickens. A little bit strange for a biologist, so it'll be a little difficult to fill that position, but it has been a priority. We were given that budget at the beginning of the year to try to find that, you know, try to fill that position, and again, at 2.5%, I believe we will be able to.
Yeah, as long as the right person comes along.
As long as we get the right person who wants the job. Yeah.
I see the funding level or the pay, once all included, is about $35,000, $24,000 in salary. Now, I understand, like, I mean, when we start talking about the bird flu, I mean, the same thing that comes to mind is the rabies epidemic that we had experienced a long time ago. And I believe that I remember reading somewhere that there was a rabies fund of some sort at one point in time under the Department of Agriculture.
Yes.
Is it still in place?
Well, yes. They've apparently, what's the term? What they did with the rabies? Yeah. The bill that allowed that it was, I believe, was passed by the last legislature that allowed for dormant or unused accounts to be closed. Well, for some reason, I think I know the reason, but our rabies fund was targeted as a fund that wasn't being used, Now, I do think the reason for that is that we lost our territorial veterinarian the very first year that we came into office, and it took us almost 3 years to get another one. And in the meantime, yes, that fund remained relatively dormant because that's the privy of the territorial vet to use that for rabies-related programs. We got our territorial vet in September of last year. The money's been moving. I mean, there's a million things he wants to buy.
Okay.
And then
But there's no funds for it because
now that those funds have been pulled, yes.
Okay, and then again, I just want to go one more question past that. So if we mix in, say for example, we're talking about rabies coming in from off island. I mean, just that whole epidemic. We can probably deem bird flu in the same light. So if we resurrected such a fund to include, bird flu, as well as rabies and any other potential threats in terms of diseases, then perhaps we could be looking at an increase in the salary offering for a biologist one, because then he or she wouldn't be focusing on one issue, but on several across the board. And with that increase of funding, you might be able to get more candidates. Is that a fair statement to make?
Potentially, yes. Certainly, you get more funding, you get more candidates.
Okay.
There are many zoonotic diseases that we have seen in recent years: the SARS, West Nile virus, avian influenza, and rabies has not gone away. So
Okay.
yes, there's a number of issues. The rabies fund was created quite some time ago, when that was certainly our most, the dangerous threat. But new ones have come up, and yeah, I would. It would be nice if we were able to utilize a fund to be able to start addressing all of those other threats as well.
But for now, until September, you'll be able to take a 2.5% cut.
Yeah, like I said, we're going to be losing some people that that actually worked for us. Like I said, when one of them is quitting, the other is taking part time. Not much we can do. And
All right. Well, thank you.
It'll be tight, but we can do it.
We'll talk more. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Senator Guthers.
I'm sorry, I should have asked this earlier. Your department now is in charge of dog interdiction, correct?
Yes, animal control.
Okay. Now, and you do have now a territorial veterinarian, correct?
We do, yes.
Now, someone has asked me this, and I'd like to maybe hear from you. How does the territorial veterinarian work with island veterinarians? Does he have any oversight at all?
No, not really. He has oversight over the process of shipping dogs and cats. And under that, there's laws that these vets have to comply with in order to help their customers ship their animals. So to the respect that the territorial vet makes sure that they fill out the proper documentation, that they get the right shots, and that they all comply with the law, then yes, there's some level. We also have inspection of facilities, shelter facilities, pet facilities, to make sure that there's humane treatment and it's being done well. But there really is no direct oversight over veterinarians. That's the Allied Board of Health that handles that.
All right. The reason I ask is because I understand that the territorial vet, after hours, helps out at a island veterinary clinic, privately
Actually,
operated.
he has freelanced for a few other veterinarians,
Okay.
helped fill in on occasion.
Okay. And in your mind, Director, you don't believe that there's any potential conflict of the territorial veterinarian after working hours assisting island vets?
I don't, because he asked, and I actually signed that permission to allow him to do that. Dr. Poole was a very difficult recruit. He's highly qualified, probably more qualified than what we're able to afford him. So as a part of the condition of getting him to come, I allowed him to work outside, at an outside position, as long as it didn't interfere with our work. But I don't see any direct regulatory authority that is being impacted by him helping out the veterinary community. In fact, I'm actually grateful that he gets to know them very well and he understands the challenges that they face, and it's helped actually to create our better relations with our department with these other veterinarians. Yeah.
Would you believe it to be your responsibility to ensure that no conflicts do develop? And would you be able to intercede if they did?
Of course.
Okay, I think that's important to get on the record. I know it's difficult to fill these positions, and sometimes the remuneration for these positions is not equal to the talent. You're correct. And this is an example, I would assume.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, Senator Pangilinan, you'll be
Just
the
one
last
question.
speaker.
Paul, on these federally funded positions, do you have ongoing continuous announcements for these positions?
For most of them, certainly the biologists.
Okay.
Certainly the professional ones.
Okay, so they're why
ongoing.
not the others if they're all federally
Well,
funded?
because some of them we can fill. The technicians don't require as much education. Once we fill them, we can close those, and they don't.
Well, yeah, but I meant as long as they're vacant, there's an ongoing continuous announcement.
That's right. Yes.
And people can access this through where? Department of Administration?
Administration.
Is there a website that has these openings? John, is there a
There
website?
should be, but I don't know.
No.
I don't know, and it would be nice. I mean, we would like all the help we could getting recruitment.
Yeah. Okay, I just want to, there's somebody listening out there and saying, hey, here's a
know that's
position. I didn't know that was open. I can qualify. You might get somebody.
Yeah.
But I think it'll behoove us as a government to try and maximize the federal dollars to make sure we, number one, have ongoing, continuous open announcements for all the federally funded positions, and we maximize the exposure of those vacancies so that individuals can, even some people from off island should be able to access them as an ongoing, continuous announcement, through some portal or website. I know we have a new portal, so that we can actually have the widest distribution we can. Department of Labor, their one-stop career center, all of these, all these federally funded positions that are open and continuous announcements should be posted there, I think, to ensure that we're able to recruit them, spend the money from the feds. Why not? As long as we give them the programs that they're funding. We have to do that. We understand that, but we just want to act quickly.
I agree 100%.
Thank
Senator.
you.
We do try also some recruitment methods. We talk to the university, where our graduates are coming from, but you can't do enough, and I agree with you.
Okay, thank you. Well, I just want to share with you that you need to have a web page. That's
Department of Agriculture has a web page.
you do.
Yes.
Okay, do you know what the web page?
Do I know what the
Yeah.
what the web page is?
www. What?
What is it?
Gov.
Yeah, it's guamagriculture.org.
Okay, guamagriculture.org.
www.guamagriculture.org.
Okay, well, we have completed the Department of Agriculture, Mr. Bassler, and to your staff, Mrs. Masi.
Thank you, Senators.
And tomorrow, we will start with the Department of Land Management, and we'll go down to Department of Parks and Recreation, Guam Council of the Arts, Department of Chamorro Affairs. Also, tomorrow at 10 o'clock, there's a public hearing for Monte Mesa on the Committee on Tourism at 10 o'clock in the morning. The Committee of the Whole will now recess until 9 o'clock tomorrow morning.